Hey, welcome everyone back to the Dusty Wheel for another live adaptation of the Eye of the World. This is our Wheel of Time talk show all about the book series and the television series. And I am your host, the Innkeeper. Now, I'm really excited. I don't have any grand news to share today other than the fact that we have a special guest panelist. He's shown up for the last two shows. You know him really well. And so let me just bring all of our panelists in and introduce them now. Hey guys, welcome up. We have Nameless here with us today. Welcome, Nameless. And Tal and Mary and Todd, everyone knows all of you. Nameless, if you somehow are on YouTube and don't know who Nameless is, super fan of the Wheel of Time. I think he's a famous YouTuber and obviously friend of the show. It's awesome to have all of you here. Are you guys ready to talk about Rand and Mat and Caemlyn?
Among other things.
Yes. Well, if you recall, we rushed into Caemlyn right at the very end, and we got Rand and Mat into the inn. And what I wanted to do was start right there. And I know that we kind of rushed some of their sequence. If some of you are watching us right now and you have some questions or comments about Rand and Mat's journey, and when you do call in, if you want to mention it, that's fine. But for the panel's sake, I want us to start with an iconic scene because it's one of our first questions. Because Rand leaves Mat in the room because Mat, he's having some problems, and Rand leaves Mat in the room, and he comes down and he meets his first Trolloc, or maybe second Trolloc face to face, Loial, right? So we have the Ogier here, right? Do we? I want to ask this question. I'm going to give you the first shot here. When it comes to Loial and the Ogier,
we lost Nameless, Matt.
Oh, we lost him. Oh, sorry, I didn't notice we lost him. So yeah, hopefully he'll jump back in. So he'll into Zoom. So while we wait for him, to the panelists that are on, do we need to have Loial with us in the story at this point? Is he providing some key function to the overall plot? What are your thoughts here, Mary?
Well, I want to give credit to Seth Baker on Twitter, who brought up the possibility of possibly cutting Loial and the Ogier all together. I was thinking about that all day because I love them as characters, as parts of the Wheel of Time world. But would the plot suffer without them? And I can't say yes to that. I really can't. I want to. I think that maybe it's not as enjoyable, but I don't think the plot would suffer if they weren't there, and I feel very bad for saying that.
You're a cut Loial at this point?
I'm very much on the fence and leaning that way.
Okay, Nameless, welcome back. Sorry about that.
Yay! Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you.
I don't know what happened there.
Hey, so Mary jumped in for our first signal to cut Loial. She's in that position. Where are you at when it comes to the Ogier and Rand's meet up here? Do you think that they're fundamental to his development or any development of the party itself and the story? Or I don't know. I'm kind of curious. What do you think about him?
So I think it's part of a bigger discussion as a whole. One, I think you have to look at, I think Loial needs to be in the story if the Ogier are going to be in the story. But I do think the Ogier can be cut in general. I always talk about this. When I look at cuts from the story, what I want to look at is what has the least amount of collateral damage to the rest of the story. So if I removed this character or this plot line or any of the above, what's going to happen to the rest of the story? And I frankly think Loial serves as an exposition machine. For the most part. But that role can be filled by Moiraine. It could be filled by Thom. It can be filled by a number of other characters. So is Loial expendable? In the Eye of the World, he absolutely is, because Moiraine could know about the ways if we wanted to modify that plot. So
yeah,
Loial isn't necessary. Now, if I was making cuts, I would probably, as much as I love Loial, as much as I love the concept of the Ogier, I'd probably cut him.
Wow. Okay. There is that piece of, we can get a lot of the information that he brings to the table in other places. Now we have the steading, we have some narrative depth there as far as who the Ogier are. But you're right, we can just kind of include them in the story, but not necessarily do they have to be in the story as far as a character at this point. Todd and Tal, are you guys also at a cut the Ogier in essence? No, or cut Loial at this point?
The only reason that I'm in for keeping them is because he is the one who basically archives the story of the Ta'veren. Otherwise, I don't necessarily see him being needed. But I mean, that's really my only reason for having him there.
Interesting. Okay. And Tal, are you gonna follow this up? Are all my panelists for excise?
Loial and the Ogier add texture to the story. They don't add depth.
Okay.
So in my mind, Nameless nailed it. He's exposition guy. From him, we get the explanation behind the Aiel War. We understand why Curian is the center of it. We understand about Layman's throne. We understand it's the first external mention outside of our 5 of Rand's physical appearance and relation to the Aiel. He tells us about the pattern and about Ta'veren. But all of that information could come from Moiraine or Varen, frankly. It doesn't need to be Loial. I love him, but I don't see him as necessary. Further down the line, he humanizes Rand in a way that only Min can. But it's irrelevant at this point. Who knows if the series will get that far?
Okay. Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting it to be that unified. By the way, for anyone that's watching, feel free to make comments in the YouTube comment channel there in the chat. But remember, this is a live call-in talk show. The number should be at the bottom of the screen, but if you are listening to us and it's live, it's 1-313-825-TALK-WATT or 1-313-825-5968. I'm kind of curious what the chat room is saying about Loial. I wonder if all of us are here.
Judging by the chat, we're fixing to get a bunch of calls.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing here?
Yeah, please.
So you and I were talking about this not that long ago. That all being said, I think I would personally cut Loial as much as I love him and the Ogier as characters. I actually don't think that's going to happen. Because Rafe tweeted out way back when he was first writing the scripts, he threw out a hashtag glory to the builders tweet.
Wow.
While he was writing the scripts. Now, maybe I'm reading the tea leaves a little bit, but usually you wouldn't do that unless the Ogier were going to be a part of it. So
yeah,
while I think I would cut it, I don't think that's actually going to happen. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nameless.
I was just going to say, and I'll be devil's advocate here and say, here's the argument for keeping it, right? Even though I just said I would cut him, here's the argument for keeping it. For one, if you did remove the Ogier, Steading aren't a thing anymore. So do we pull that out of the story? Because there's a couple plots that revolve around a Steading throughout the story. And if we have all of the exposition come from Moiraine, that can be, we don't want her to be pigeonholed. Like, that takes away from Moraine's character as well. So there's the argument for keeping Loial. I just think he could be cut. And so for that reason, if I had to make hard cuts, that's who I would cut.
I would disagree with that pigeonholing Moiraine only because Aes Sedai are supposed to be knowledgeable and it adds to her mystique. And you can keep the setting while losing the Ogier. You just say that the Ogier perished in the breaking or they died off sometime during the last 3,500 years.
Mm-hmm. So
they
saying
could have built the great?
Are you guys
built the great cities?
Are you guys saying completely? I mean, because I feel like, Mary, you could though keep them for later, I guess. You know, in the end, maybe season 1 just can't afford the budget for them. Maybe there's just, you know, we don't know how long the television series is going to go. But as the, you know, let's say we get a season 3, a season 4, a season 5, would you guys want to see the Ogier come back into the story, even if we kept Loial out? Or
he's the only one I really care about.
I think that they could bring them in, the Guardians, the Shanchan Guardians. I'm blanking on
the Gardeners.
Gardeners. There you go.
We're not keeping them, are we?
We're not even there
We
yet.
haven't gotten there. Let's get to Caemlyn first.
I just
Okay.
wanted to point out that in some cases there is a bit of a connection between Jordan himself
Yes.
and Loial. And he's identified, I believe in the interviews a couple of times, he identifies the most with Loial in terms of his position in the story. And so I sort of wonder, to Nabliss's earlier point, whether that's going to be a bit of a call out to our author.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah,
It makes a great jump cut to walk into the library and see what you think is a Trolloc.
Okay, I'll be honest. I want to see Matt see. My desire for him there is a lot just to see Matt see Loial for the first time and scream. You know, that's. I want that scene, even though I think we only get it from a memory standpoint. You know, I don't think we actually see that happen for the first time. Okay, so Loial's gone out of our adaptation. I can't save him with my single vote. That's how this works. If you guys are watching, the panelists, whoever majority wins on this. Now I have been known to retcon people, but I would have to have a majority of whatever the panel I have, and that's going to be tough if everyone here is against Loial. So, unfortunately, if you're watching, if you love Loial, he's gone. We're sorry. Let's move on. Let's move on. At this point, we have. At this point in the story, we have Nynaeve, Moraine, and Lan, and they find the White Cloak encampment. I believe our adaptation is definitely going down this road already. We have them in the story. Is there anything about this part of the story from the adaptation standpoint that shouldn't just, be in the story? And I think we talked about Perrin and Egwene having this. We talked about their story a lot last time, and Byre and the White Cloak. Is there anything here you guys want to revisit before we get back to Rand and Matt? Was there anything that happened last week when we talked that you feel is necessary to go back, or do we like this as it was and just move forward back to Caemlyn?
In my view, I love the interaction between Lan and Nynaeve, but it's a really expensive and impractical way to build character.
Okay. You want more of it?
No, I don't think we need it, is what I'm saying. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else there as far as what we...
think...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I kind of feel like we could go straight into the rescue and skip that part of the story.
Okay.
I have it marked as a whatever.
Okay, before we jump back to Rand and Matt and actually get Rand going out to see Logain, because this is an important piece of the story, we do have a caller. Let's bring our first caller in. It's a return caller. It's Lancer from California. Let's bring him into the show. Hey, Lancer, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Hey, you guys, how are you? I am crying over here again. And I think I'm echoing part of the chat over here of how much we're crying over here.
Oh, we're not happy about it, dude.
That doesn't mean you have to take them out. Come on. Nabla said it. Glory to the builders, and you want to get rid of them? Are you kidding me? You might as well say, you know what, let's remake Return of the Jedi and get rid of the murder bears. Come on! You can't get rid of the humanity. You can't get rid of the comic relief of the soupçon, the seasoned salt, the loveliness that is the recipe that is Loial, who just gives everything context, and at the same time you want to slap him in the face. But he's a great character.
Well,
you can't get rid of the guy.
Okay, Lancer, I think you're doing an excellent job, by the way, of taking all of what's happening probably in the comments and bringing it into this for sure. But you made some good points there as far as and this is Tal mentioned this. He does add texture, right, to the story, and this is the case for everything. And Nablus and I kind of chatted about this really briefly, which is. The reality is they're going to make changes. Brandon has brought up the fact that, that it's clear this is going to be the vision that Rafe and his team have, not necessarily a sentence by sentence, adaptation. So in the end, we could see much bigger changes than this. We're talking about losing Loial. we could lose Caemlyn, we could lose Faldara, right? Like there's much more significant changes here, but certainly every character that we removes some form of texture from the story that we're familiar with. And so in that way, I think you find commonality of feeling among the fans, which is, of course, we don't want to cut these, but you have to admit that Loial, at least at this point, isn't necessarily so key to the story that we can't bring in the Ogier later. Perhaps maybe Loial comes in later. It's hard to know how they're going to adapt it.
You may bring him in later, but I look at it like this. Lord of the Rings, I take Lord of the Rings as an example. You had to have the other races in order to make the world bigger. And Loial makes the Wheel of Time world bigger. It's not just humans. There are Ogier. There are, not just Shadowspawn. There are other creatures in this world that are benevolent creatures, and that helps change the world so that it's not just a carbon copy of something else that we've seen, that is like another Game of Thrones where it's just human. It's just like there's not, and no disrespect to any of you on the screen, it's not just more white people all over the place. There are people of color all over the place, and not just in different regions. Now Emmons Field is now multicultural instead of just binarily cultural, so I get the changes that need to be made, but there's just some things you just can't get rid of. You got to keep Loial.
Okay, well, no, and I appreciate that, and if you made the appeal to me from a parallel dimension standpoint, when it comes to the Ogier and adding some complexity to the storyline, and that's what I hope that they would continue to do in the story itself. And absolutely hear you there. Did anyone want to make a kind of a response to Lancer before
if it makes you feel better, Lancer, I hope I'm wrong. I really
Me too.
Yeah, I would say this. I think I'm reading a lot of the comments too. I think a lot of people are misunderstanding this. I don't think any of us are campaigning to get the Ogier removed. I'm just saying if you're talking about people that are in charge of a show and they're already going to have to make tough cuts, there are going to need to be plot lines and things that are cut. And this is just one that I look at as it has the least damage to the story, to the core of the story.
There's only one character I'm going to campaign we get rid of, and I don't feel bad about it. We haven't gotten there yet, so.
Okay, well, yeah. Oh, and I'll jump the gun for you. Just get rid of Gawyn and call it a day. We can all agree with that. Just kill Gawyn. He said, he fell off a cliff while riding a horse or something. I don't know. So,
okay. No, I hear you. Hey, Lancer, by the way, thank you again. As always, really appreciate your thoughts. Appreciate you bringing the comments from YouTube into a voice on the phone, and we really appreciate that. And
he's saying thank you for agreeing with him.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, can I say one quick thing real quick before I go?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now that I have Nablus that I can actually talk to him face to face, Nablus, it's Ruinian. And it's Kyrian. Please remember that the next time you do your next thing.
Are you name shaming our guest? Don't name shame our guest. Hey, Lancer. Hey, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
See ya.
Man, it's Tame, not Taim. No, I'm just kidding. Tame.
Hey, my pronunciation is garbage, so
I'm gonna have to intentionally keep pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I would.
Yeah, that's.
I'll tell you where I get it at. It's the audiobooks, and I like the audiobooks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There is. And then before we jump back into the story, Oscar from Sweden is on the call. Definitely want to get him in here. Don't want to make him wait too long. So let's pull him in and see what he has to say. Hey, is this Oscar from Sweden?
Yeah, hello once again.
How are you doing?
Hello again.
I'm doing quite fine. Just have a nice rest so I could be here on the show.
Awesome. So what did you think? What's your comment?
Well, for once, how dare you cut out Loial from the show? But,
and this is the show.
It is. Yeah, but I do agree on some parts because, like you said, he is kind of an easy cut. But at the same time, if we're going to believe the rumors that Thom Merrilin is in the show as well, you would just put more exposition position for Moraine. And thus, it could be putting her in a kind of bad position as one of the main characters. It's just an exposition point.
Yeah, I think that's the question, which is how many of these, in the end, do we have to have some of these main characters do all of this work from an exposition standpoint? And look, Loial. I didn't realize how much love in the fan base there would be for our cut for Loial. I should have anticipated it.
Didn't you?
Because we didn't even get this much love for Thom. I guess I kind of considered that they would have the same amount. But yeah, that's interesting.
Now, hold up. Did I miss an episode where you all cut Thom?
Okay, so Thom.
No, not at all.
Thom did not get. Oh man, I can't even remember now. Did we?
Yeah,
cut
he
Thom?
did, dude.
We
yeah,
cut
we
Thom?
did. I'm fairly certain we did.
We said we would
We'd revisit it.
we would revisit it, but we were talking about letting him meet up with them later on after Barrelon.
I don't want to get all that distracted, but tell me why in the world you would do that.
You know what? Honestly, since rereading the chapters in Caemlyn, I have switched my position. Basil Gill does everything he does for the boys based on his friendship with Thom. You can't cut the guy.
Well, what does it help to cut Thom? I guess is my question. I just look at it. What would be the benefit of cutting Thom?
Maureen can't fall in love with him.
So we didn't really cut him. I think we brought him in later. We didn't cut him out, but we brought him in later after the Trolloc attack. And they leave Emmonsfield, and then I think we brought him in on the way to Barrelon, if I remember right.
No, I think one of the issues here was, and one of the benefits of Thom not being there is by not necessarily providing a guide for Matt and Rand. The idea being that them without a guide after the split would actually be a little bit more kind of a powerful interaction with their fear and, there being country bumpkins out alone. And that Thom really, at the beginning, right, he leaves us relatively quickly, right? He's in and then he's gone. And so so I think that came up, which was he's not really playing that large of a role at the beginning, and he just serves to kind of guide them a bit, and then he's out. So I think there was some question of, well, he's not really playing a huge role at this point. If they had to make some cuts, this is somebody that they could cut initially that we could learn of later potentially. But that was the idea, was when we were first kind of hitting the cuts. That's what I remember.
But we wanted him there for Whitebridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember if he
there for Whitebridge.
I can't remember if he came back in, but yeah, that's a. I love that Nameless is like, wait a second, I'm out. You guys cut Thom.
I didn't agree with. I can't bbelieve I would have agreed to that. I hate the Thom Warren romance, but I don't think I would cut Thom.
Yeah, and I don't. I think Pat and Fane was actually the person that got cut.
Yes.
And I retconned Pat and Fane back into the story. So, hey, Oscar from Sweden. Sorry we got off on the tangent there, but I really appreciate.
Yeah, no worries.
I really appreciate you speaking up for Loial, and and obviously Lancer.
Yeah.
Totally understand what you're saying there, and like Nabla said, in the end, maybe there was a hint from Rafe there, and they're in the story. And it just so happens to be that our adaptation might not have Loial moving forward. But the good thing is, maybe for you, we're not the ones making the decision on the television series. So, hey,
sure. Mind if I give a shout out before I leave?
Yeah, please do.
So there is this Wheel of Time YouTube channel that I've been following for a while that is pretty cool, that is called Way of the Hero. It is two guys who pretty much analyzing certain sword forms mentioned in the book. And I think they are pretty cool, so everyone should go over there and go like and subscribe to them.
Hey, I appreciate you throwing that out there. Yeah. The Way of the Heron is really cool. I love watching their stuff, and I appreciate you throwing a shout out to them. Hey, Oscar, thanks for calling, and please do call back, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, good
Have
night,
a good
man.
day.
Hey, thanks. Okay, so let's jump back into it. Before we maybe get caught up in Loial a little bit too anymore at this
Not
point.
giving it up. Not
So
giving it
They're going to hate us later.
Oh, they're gonna lynch
Logain.
us.
I want to ask
Okay.
Nablus, Logain at this point, we know that Rafe has talked about giving him a larger part in the story. Do you anticipate that this is where we're going to get more of Logain, or do you think it's coming before this point?
So I talked about this actually in a video because he is the character I think that can be expanded on the most. I think we're going to see him long before we get to Caemlyn. Because again, we talk about arcs. So you want to have we need to meet Logain while he's powerful, while he's at the top of his game, while he's arrogant, while he's doing his thing. I think we might even see him getting captured.
Yeah.
Like see him losing a battle. I do think we will see him in Caemlyn. And I think we'll see him being captured or having been captured.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the first that we're going to run into him.
So when it comes to this sequence, because I agree with you there, when it comes to this sequence, then we've kind of had let's say I absolutely agree. We're going to get some story arc from him. In the books, we don't really get an interaction between Rand and Logain. In fact, Rand tries to get a spot he's trying to get a good close spot. It's actually Pat and Fane that runs him off, right? And that brings up this whole sequence where he climbs up the hill and falls in. And so he sees Logain from afar. Do you think we're going to, and have you thought through this, are we going to get a Logain-Rand interaction in the television series?
No, I don't think we will. At least not until much later. I think they meet up and I don't want to give spoilers, but later on in the books. But I don't think we are at this point because at this point, Rand is just a farm boy still. He's a nobody. I don't think there's a reason for them to interact other than I do think it will be obvious that Logain sees him and sees that's why he starts laughing, right? He sees him. So I think we need to make sure that they see each other. But I want to hit this too, like one more thing, because if you are going to expand Logain, we talked about this last week when I called in about the White Cloaks. What makes compelling television is good arcs, right? And that's one of the things that Game of Thrones did well until they didn't in the last episode or in the last season. But you have an arc of a character. So you have the arc of the White Cloaks. In this case, the books give us hints of Logain, but we never really get to know him super well. I think that what's going to happen in the series, especially if they want to expand that character, which I think is a great idea, there's great potential there for incredible arcs or an incredible arc for Logain. And I think this is just a piece in that. So we're going to get exposed a little bits at a time here to Logain in the first season, getting an idea of who he is. He's this arrogant. He thinks he's the Dragon Reborn. And I think Logain probably did think that's who he was. Right? I mean, he hints at that in the books.
Yeah.
So to see him captured and then feeling down about himself or being whatever, and then seeing Rand and just hysterically laughing because he knows what that farm boy is going to bring to the world as one person in a crowd. I think that's a cool moment.
Yeah, I love that. That gives me the chills a bit. Anyone else on the panel? Just comments about Logain and Rand's interactions.
We need that scene because part of the mystery of Eye of the World is we don't know who the shadow is after, which of the boys, and that's one of the clues that's given that Rand is the one that they're after, that he's the Dragon Reborn, and to have Logain spot him in a crowd and just react as such, we need that. And like you said, that would be very compelling to see on screen.
Yeah, I love this idea of having the point of view from Logain's side. In fact, even kind of getting some behind the scenes in Caemlyn with him, and as they put him, and as he's paraded through, and him seeing Rand. I love flipping that scene a bit like that. That'd be really cool.
Men can't feel a channeler the same way that women can. Am I remembering that right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's and it depends on what they're gonna.
They tend to have more visions. She sees more around channelers because their lives are more exciting or whatever.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was, can men sense channelers? Males.
Oh, I thought you said men.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's
the
and
Yankee
that's,
accent I have. I'm sorry.
No, but a lot of this is where the choices from Rafe on the storytelling there. It doesn't have to be that he sensed it. You can give him a talent. You can whatever.
Well, that's how he did it. That's how he did it.
I wasn't saying that. I was just trying to remember.
Logain has the talent, and that's how he saw it. But last episode, Todd, we did talk about how they were going to show the magic, and this most recent chunk of the book reinforced for me that the magic needs to be totally invisible except for the results, at least until the girls hit the White Tower.
I think you're going to see both. I agree with that, but I don't think, just as a side point, I don't think that's what Logain was seeing when he was seeing Rand. What he was seeing was Rand's Taviran-ness.
Yeah.
Because Logain could see Taviran. He wasn't seeing that Rand could channel.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question, because I couldn't remember. I remember Rand made Taim hold the power so he could feel, how strong he was, but he had to be holding it for him to be able to tell, if I remember right.
They don't see it. Men don't see the glow like women do. They can just feel it.
Before we go any further, I want to bring Shansane is on the phone. She's been patiently waiting for us. So let's bring her in here. Shansane, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. You're not out doing karaoke tonight, huh?
Not tonight. Nope.
Thank goodness.
Okay. Are you here to defend Loial, or do you have a comment about Logain or something else we've discussed?
Well, I would never defend Loial because I think he can just go.
Wow, okay.
I'm one of the few people that would happily cut Loial for more screen time from Logain and also from Elaida, because I think that Logain is a good point of view character for the Black Tower and things of that sort. But Elaida, I think, is a great antagonist who is not a true villain. And I think that's a much more interesting story than just a loyal friend.
You're so funny. My one note on Elaida is, I guess we need her.
We totally need her.
I could not agree more. I love Elaida.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get.
Oh, she's great.
I love to hate her.
I'm hoping she's not that kind of. Yeah, I want same thing there, right? I would drop Loial to get more Logain and Elaida scenes here, right? I think Caemlyn, assuming they keep it, which seems crazy to think that they wouldn't. They can do whatever they want, I guess, from an adaptation standpoint. But she's so interesting, and I think they can make her more than just kind of a one-dimensional villain. To as far as a foil for some of the stuff that that goes on in Tar Valon. So yeah, I'd love to. What are you hoping to see then, Shansane? What are you hoping to see from Elaida?
Well, Elaida is a good example of a character who, if not for her own getting in her own way, she would be on the side of the heroes, because on paper she is doing everything that she believes is going to win for the light. She believes that she is 100% on the side of the light. She believes she understands her foretellings, and she's just wrong. And because she's wrong, she is doing the will of the Dark One without even knowing it.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. You just summed it up beautifully.
Yeah, I love that you brought her up. I love that you brought her up because we're about to jump in there. By the way, anyone else that's on hold, waiting, on the line, the phone lines are kind of heating up here. So yeah, apologize for anyone that's waiting, but yeah, I love this idea of focusing much more on these two characters. I think it's actually going to bring something really new and fun to the story that we don't experience in the books. And that's kind of one of the things I'm looking forward to in the television series, is getting some of these interactions that we just kind of imagined in our minds. Is there, as far as Logain is concerned, Shansane, is that a character you want to see, just like we've talked about, get more screen time and learn more about?
Yes, because I believe that we see some sort of tantalizing glimpses of who Logain is at the very beginning, and then a few more glimpses at the very end, but you don't see a lot of the trajectory in between. And I think that he could be a very interesting new point of view character, and they have a lot of freedom to sort of take him in a different direction. They could make him a gay character, they could make him bisexual,
Yes.
They could do all kinds of things to make him a much more interesting and resonant character than he already is, which is pretty considerable.
The other piece that just occurred to me now while you were talking, Shantane, is that it gives us a great opportunity to build in the Red Ajah politicking, and the dark Red Ajah sort of
Galina
steering,
and Katarine and all of them.
Yeah, but steering the good Red Ajah to do their work for them.
Well, yes, like Pavara and Sylviana and people like that. Yeah, I think that having more of the Red Ajah in general, and like some of the sort of politicking between them of like what's the right way to go forward, and just showing that the Red Ajah do have an important job to do in this world, and that they're not just these villains.
Yeah, Moraine makes a comment that there are 20 of them, I think, in Caemlyn at this point. So they certainly could do some things on screen that we never saw in the books, that kind of establish Elaida and her position with them, and give us more detail about the Red Ajah, in this moment. I hadn't thought about that. That's great. Hey,
I would love to see Pavara even this early,
Well, let me add on. I actually wouldn't, and I'll tell you why. I feel like what Robert Jordan did a really good job of. He did this with the White Cloaks, is one of the things I said. Again, you look at the arc not of a character, but as a group. The arc of the White Cloaks starts off as them being perceived as villains. And I wouldn't say they're necessarily redeemed, but by the end, they're on the same side fighting alongside Parent, right? There is a redemption arc there. I feel like the same thing happens with the Red Ajah. And I think it's okay to set them up as the villains up front, just to later on humanize them. So I feel like
if we're going to do that, then we need to see Galina. Yeah. If we saw Galina and people like that early on, and we later find out that they're Black Ajah, then then we could set up that prejudice against the Red Ajah.
Well, because you're going to have Leandrin. So don't forget, Leandrin should show up here in the first.
Do we have to?
Yes, we need Leandrin. We're not cutting her yet.
We do.
Well, Shantane, thank you so much for calling in, as always. Really appreciate you waiting on the line there and for sharing that opinion. Kind of pulled us right into where we're about to go with Rand. So I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit more about her and the Red Ajah. So, hey, have a good evening, and hopefully we'll see you and talk to you next week.
All right.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Nick from Florida is on. Let's bring him in. He's been waiting a good amount of time, and let's see what he has to say. Hey, Nick, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
I am doing pretty well. What about you?
I think we're doing good. Are you here to defend the Ogier, or are you here to support Logain, or are you against Elaida? What's your opinions tonight?
Well, I mean, I'm obviously against Elaida. Who isn't? But no, I'm really happy that you have Nablus on. He's one of my favorite Wheel of Time YouTubers.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, then I love your channel. I just wanted to say that to start out.
Thank you.
But no, I think that Logain should have a bigger role early on, and I know that they said that they're going to do that. But I think that he should have like a because the Edmundfield Five are the main characters, and then Moraine and Lan, and I think Logain should be in that second tier of characters that gets the most screen time. I think we should see him not at his heights. At his heights is obviously later in the show. But we should see him powerful before he's captured by the Aes Sedai and gentled. And then we should absolutely see him gentled through see the process of gentling. I think they should show us that early on. And the reason I think that is it'll add a weight when the audience learns that Rand can channel. Because if we've seen a male channel get gentle, you're like, oh my God, if anybody finds out, this could happen to Rand. So it'll add that extra weight during the reveal. That's my opinion on that anyway.
There's certainly from the gentling side, I think that's going to be, I'll be surprised if that's not a huge portion of this arc, right? Because we're seeing you see what you think might be the end of this character's usefulness to the story. And so and it's not a redemption arc, but right. He's the concept that he's moving towards this slowly but surely. And I think that we'll definitely see that kind of cadence going towards this moment. So yeah, no, that's definitely a piece that when we get to that, and I think that I look forward to kind of discussing that, with the panelists when we get there, which is, how they might handle that. Was there anything else that kind of came up tonight that you had a reaction to?
Yeah, I think that the Ogier should be cut entirely, and cut the Ogier leave. I know chat's gonna kill me for this, but it's fine. Cut the Ogier, leave the settings, and just explain that they died off, but they left behind the settings and the ways and the stuff like that. Only because he's an exposition machine, and we don't need him. Yeah. It's like someone in the chat. Yeah, and someone in the chat compared him to Tom Bombadil from Lord of the Rings, and I agree. That's kind of how it comes off a lot of the time. Okay.
Yeah. The taking them all out. I'm not there yet. That's. I don't know. Maybe I'll get there someday. I would still like to see them as part of the story.
They existed. They're just not around anymore. They're dead.
Yeah, I guess
they
I'm died off. I'm hoping if they don't include them at the beginning, that we'll still get back to them. Again, if we get down the road multiple seasons, we're going to be able to do a lot more with the story. We're going to have more episodes, I would anticipate. And I think there's still kind of, being in the world, they still add texture to it in a way that I do hope we get to. So but anyways, that's kind of where I sit on that opinion. By the way, Nick, go ahead.
I did want to ask one question to the whole panel, and then I'll go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because I'm sure there's other people in here. My question for the panel is if we get 10 episode seasons with the plans to do 2 books a season for the early seasons, how many chapters and or key moments would you want per episode? Would you because I'm thinking certain things like the Eye of the World scene at the end of the book, that needs to be the majority of an episode, and then also the battle at the end of the Great Hunt would need to be the majority of the episode. So you would have to squeeze the rest of the 2 books into 8 episodes.
Yeah, let me reframe this question, because I think we could probably spend an entire call on this specific question. And let me reframe this for Nablus. Where, as far as the first season's concerned, let's go down the road that Nick mentioned, 8 to 10 episodes. Where are you hoping that we get to?
Okay, if it was an ideal world, I want them to take a page out of the Game of Thrones book. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. Later on, Game of Thrones got a little away from the source material. But if you look at it, book 1 and season 1 were almost identical. Even some of the scripting was identical. I think that was a positive because it really established the world a little bit. We got to learn about Westeros. We got to learn about the different kingdoms. We got to meet different people. We got to meet characters that had fairly small roles that ended up having larger roles down the road.
Right.
So in an ideal world, I would love to see it end with the Eye of the World and just be the first book. Okay. Do I think we're going to get that? No. Now, I am not 100% convinced, and I know this is going on, that people think that we're going to get book 1 and book 2 in the first season. I'm not convinced that that's what we're going to get. I think that the chapter titles, or the episode titles that have been released, I think those can be, I think they're being a little misleading. I'll just put it at that. I think that was done deliberately. I don't think they're moving that fast, because that would put us basically done with Eye of the World, if I'm going by chapter titles, by episode 4. I don't think we're doing that. Okay. I also think there's going to be added in. I don't think it's going to move as linear as maybe we think it will. Okay. So all that being said, to answer your original question, I'm sorry for the real lengthy backstory answer there, but what I think is going to happen, I think we're going to end with the Eye of the World still. I think it'll be roughly that way. Now, I think we may get there different. Does that make sense? Like, I think we may have other things happen between then and there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
And the Eye of the World itself, which I know you're going to have an episode adapting that, so we won't go down that road now. But I think that'll be different. So
cool. Yeah, thank you very much for doing that. Hey, Nick, thank you so much for giving a call as usual. Really appreciate you continue to be a viewer and for calling in, and thank you for shouting out Nameless because he's one of our favorites too. So appreciate it, man. We'll hopefully talk to you next week. See you, man. Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys. So we have 2 new callers. I want to bring them in. They've been graciously waiting a bit for us.
To yell at us, which is awesome.
Well, no, it sounds like we have MK from Maine. She wants to bring up a topic, which I think is an interesting one for the panel. So let's bring her in. So MK, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hi.
How are you doing tonight?
Hey, MK.
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing great. Hey, thank you so much for having the courage to give us a call. We know this Wheel of Time talk show call-in kind of thing is it's a bit maybe much for some, but yeah, we're just excited to talk to you. What is it you had a comment on?
Well, before I get into that, I did want to say that Nick was the previous caller.
Yeah.
His idea about the Ogier non-existing or anymore, like they died out, if they are going to go the route of cutting Loial, I think that is the perfect way to go. It's a really good idea.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not that I want Loial cut. I mean, I like the guy, but if they're going to do it, I think it would be more cost effective if they did. Put money somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, what was your? I know you had a particular kind of topic or question. What was that?
I was going to say you guys are, talking a lot about cutting characters because there's so many, and you just got it. Who would you combine?
Great question.
In the TV show.
So anyone on the panel have an immediate reaction to that, to MK's question?
Well,
Galad and Gawyn.
Yep.
Gawyn and Galad.
Disagree. Before I say that, though, I want to give a big shout out. MK is not only the moderator for my Discord server and for my channel. She's kind of my she does like all the dirty work for me. So she's the best, and I want to make sure everybody knows it. So.
Awesome. Well, awesome.
Oh, so this is a loaded, baited question.
Yeah. I told her to ask it. No, I'm joking.
Good to have a plant. Little fork root. Does wonders.
So yeah, who are you going to say as far as combining characters? I heard you disagree on Gawyn and Galad.
I will be in the minority on this, and I know you all hate Gawyn and I hate Gawyn, but I think it's because guys, I'm going to say something super blasphemous here. I think Gawyn is the worst written character by Robert Jordan. It's not that I don't like Gawyn. It's okay to not like a character. I think Gawyn is poorly written, and I think
he's lazy.
I think he can be corrected in the show and actually play a fairly good role. I don't want to see him and Galad combined because I go back to my collateral damage comment. You remove either of those two characters, Gawyn would be the easier of the two to remove, believe it or not.
There's no arc.
They both, there's no arc there. So you need them both in different ways. And I think you can improve upon Gawyn's character and make him more consistent. So I would not combine them because I think you need to have them separate. They play different roles. I would not combine them. I could go longer on that, but I know that's not the topic of the show. So,
yeah, no, I'm with you there. I don't want to combine them, and I think that's my solution for Gawyn and Galad, which is I would like to see him play. Yeah, I don't know if better written, but just I would like to see him have a better. I guess maybe better written arc.
But not everybody is redeemable. Not everybody changes. Not everybody improves.
He doesn't need to be redeemable. Here's what I feel like he's inconsistent. I feel like there's no way in the world he would have fought for Elaida. Or once he had been caught fighting for Elaida, there's no way he would have stayed knowing his sister was missing, and that was his world. I don't find it to be consistent. So that was my issue. It's not that I hate Gawyn. I think it's fine to be a dumb person. I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid, right? He can be dumb.
I think he had potential to redeem himself.
Yeah, but he chose not to time and again. Time and again. Like, he had so many chances.
The blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, but Gawyn doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, MK, to answer your question, definitely Matt's sisters could just be one sister.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll go out on a limb here. Todd's gonna hate me for this, but I think you could combine Moiraine and Cadsuane.
Oh, wow.
I don't think you can. I disagree, but I like it.
Nope.
But I like it.
Nope.
That's bold, but
there are so many.
A lot of the
there are so many.
All of
and
the Aes
so many
Sedai.
wise ones that could be combined.
Exactly.
They don't need all of them.
The White Cloaks.
Like in Saladar, like Ramonda and what's her face?
Elaine.
Yeah, like I mean, just all of them. Like they don't need that many. Come on.
I think they should combine. I think they should combine Matt, Perrin, and Rand into one. That's a joke, everybody. Don't roast me.
Maybe Bella and Mandar can one horse.
Pat, Fane, and Thom. Okay, so yeah, we went down the Looney Theory route of mixing characters. Hey, MK, thank you so much for calling, and clearly, thank you for all the work that you do at this, and hopefully you'll give us a watch again and call in again, even next week, whatever, as we move on. Really appreciate you supporting us and for calling in and asking your question. Hey, have a good night. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Have a good night. Bye, guys.
Night.
Bye.
Okay, so we have a caller. I think Rebecca from Massachusetts. She was going to call us last week, I think, and mentioned she'd call us this time. She's been waiting the longest. She's been waiting almost about 15 minutes. So let's bring her into the call and hear what she has to say. Hey, Rebecca, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
Great. Sorry for the wait, but I appreciate you sticking in there and waiting to get on. What have we said so far that's kind of that's brought you on the call tonight? What comment do you have so far about whatever's happening? Caemlyn, Matt, Rand, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I did want to talk about Gawyn and Galad. So yeah. I was glad that you guys got there. Yeah, so I've definitely seen that idea of combining the two of them before, and yeah, I agree that Nameless what Nameless said about better off not to combine them, and I think you guys generally agree. But I want to kind of make a case too for why, like I think Gawyn should, if anything, be explored a little bit more. Like you could definitely make a case for cutting him. I wouldn't be upset if they did. But I think he's an interesting character as a tragic character. I think his arc could be a tragic arc, sort of an interesting counterpoint to Rand's arc. And the tragedy of him for me is that he can't get past not being the leader. He can't just be a supporting role, and that is his downfall.
But what if we do that and we accidentally like him afterwards? Then we're all screwed.
Not worth the risk.
It's not worth the risk.
Well, yeah.
Not worth the risk.
Yeah, that's a risk. That's a real risk. I agree.
Well, maybe compare him to the incestuous brother, Jaime Lannister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's just a guy who keeps screwing it up.
Yeah. He can't. Yeah. He can't. It could be, if it's done well, it could be really heartbreaking. I think, which you would then have some sympathy for him. And like in a similar way, in the books, the romance with Egwene, it's not well developed. It's not compelling. But if the show wants to give them a little bit more writing, put them in the same place at the same time, you could have an effective tragic love story that could be worthwhile.
I like this idea. I want to visit this just for a second. This idea of a heartbreaking story when it comes to Gawyn, and if he's written a specific way. I like this. I like this because we do put him into various situations that maybe like Tal and Mary brought up. Like, just make the right choice here is what we're all thinking at some point, and he doesn't. But to him, it is at some level. And so, if they can write it well enough, I think you're right that there could be some kind of even if the heartbreaking moment is for Elayne, even if the heartbreaking moment is for Egwene, when it comes to him, I think he definitely could play an interesting kind of tragic character in that way. I
frankly think. I think where Gawyn's story can be drastically changed is I think after the battle at Tar Valon when Swan is deposed, I think he could leave with Swan, Leanne, and Min and Logain. And I think that way you end up getting him in Saladar. You create that love story a little bit more when Egwene finally gets there. And you can give Gawyn a little bit different of an arc that seems more consistent with his character. In my opinion. Again, that would be a drastic change, but I just feel like Gawyn's character can be improved upon. I don't want to see him cut. That's all.
And by the way, for those of you that are watching, we are not actually the crew that is doing the live adaptation. I mean, we're the crew that's doing the live adaptation right now. We are not actually the ones adapting it for the Amazon television series. If you are concerned at this point, as you're watching us, like, is this what's going to happen? The fun part of this is the speculation side of it for us. We have a year or more, so that's the enjoyment that we get to do.
Unless Amazon wants to give us a call, then we're all in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. By the way, Rebecca, thank you so much for calling. Did you have any other comments before we let you go tonight?
No, I think that was the main thing I wanted to talk about. So thanks, you guys. It's been fun.
Hey, thank you so much. By the way, for those of you that are watching, Rebecca, I think if I'm not mistaken, you have a YouTube channel. It's Reading the Pattern. As far as Wheel of Time is concerned.
brand new. That's right, Reading the Pattern. It's brand new. Doing some reread, recap, and analysis and discussion. Halfway through Eye of the World right now.
I have been liking your stuff, Rebecca. You're awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you didn't even mention it, and I was happy to call you out. Please, this is the fun part about doing WOC content pretty much anywhere. I love the community like this, and hopefully you'll go check her out. Reading the Pattern, look it up on YouTube. And thank you again, Rebecca, for calling. Hopefully you'll keep watching and calling in. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. You guys are awesome. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
I think we have one more caller. Let's bring the caller is anonymous, our first anonymous caller, and let's bring this person in and see what they have to say. Well, welcome anonymous to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Hey,
how are you?
Good. So have you been a lifelong Wheel of Time fan?
Well, I started reading Wheel of Time, and I'm like, wow, this stuff is amazing. Like, it's like the content of the books is so. It's like I feel like when I'm reading Wheel of Time, it's like, oh, that's how a fantasy story is supposed to be. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like you guys are kind of jumping the gun on like, it's like people have already seen Game of Thrones. If you try and just imitate Game of Thrones, it would be an imitation. And I feel like the books are on a higher level than to be just like, another, like that's what distinguishment is what helps something like the Wheel of Time to be to be loved and liked by fans. You know what I mean? So it's if you want,
can I ask you a quick question about that?
I mean, you can have boobs that, it's like people, I feel like boobs and stuff is like, yeah, that's cool, but like, anyone can like see boobs. You know what I mean? Like
So can I
Like,
ask you?
you know
can
what
I-
I mean? Like
Can I ask you a quick question? 1 second. So,
yeah.
as far as that's concerned, what do you? Is there a particular piece of the books themselves, the Wheel of Time? You mentioned this as far as this isn't going to be a Game of Thrones.
Well,
what to you makes the
yeah.
Wheel of Time the best fantasy series?
Well, I think. I mean, I don't know. I have. I've only read so much of that genre, but I feel like the sheer like the writer was it Robert Jordan put so much time and like he must have put like it was like his life's work, you know what I mean, to write. I mean, I don't know how writers, he wrote a lot of books. So I feel like the greatest part of Wheel of Time is just the depth of the story, that it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when you just like nonchalant kind of like characters, like, oh, we don't need Loial. Even you mentioned Patton Fane, you know what I mean? Like he was kind of like the sick, like sick bastard, you know what I mean? Like all these stuff, is what makes the series, likable and whatnot to people.
Absolutely.
Is that everyone,
And by the way, I think I think you'll find on the call, and if you go back and watch the previous adaptations, I know the 4 panelists and myself, we are still talking about these books decades after we found them because of the thing that you brought up, and I that's why I wanted to ask you about that, which is the depth that Robert Jordan wrote this with, the amount of effort he went into making this something that we could enjoy the 5th and 6th and 7th and 20th time that we reread the books is something that all of us all of us here appreciate. And that's why we are doing this live adaptation, because, and for those watching, right, this is the question, which is, when you transfer this to a television series, if you're not going to do a word for word adaptation, what can and must stay as far as that depth's concerned. So by the way, to you, by the way, to you, I really appreciate you calling in and letting us know, because I think all of us appreciate the fact that that fans feel so passionate about the books that even the idea of cutting a single character bothers them. And so I really appreciate you calling in, letting us know that you felt like that, and that you shared your opinion about the Wheel of Time. You called into a Wheel of Time talk show and did that, and I appreciate that, and hope that you'll come back to us next week. You'll keep watching, and that you'll come to an appreciation that the same appreciation we have, which is we love the series just as much. Trust me. And when we mention cutting characters, it might feel like a little bit callous, but it's not meant to be that way. So hey, I appreciate you calling in and sharing your opinion. And have a good night. And please do come back next week. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, man. Good night.
Night.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that is this. This is what makes it tough, right? Even I figure if I was watching, I would feel that same way, which is like, how can we cut some of these people? So,
even people that we despise, it's really hard to say, But people have to be. Some things have to go.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And it wouldn't be that much fun to do a talk show where everything stayed. So okay, so we had all those calls come in. We brought up some topics. Rand and Logain. We had kind of finished there a bit. Rand falls in. He meets Elayne and Morgase and Elaida and Gareth Byrne. And I never say Talonvors. Is that how you pronounce it? I never say
Talonvor. That's an easy one.
I know. I want to say it faster. I don't know why. It makes me nervous or something. This whole scene that happens here, and I know we've kind of gotten away a little bit from scene by scene kind of cuts, but this whole kind of, I don't want to call it a montage, but group of scenes where Rand falls in, and then he gets taken before the queen, and then Elaida does her, her foretelling and all this. Do we need this? Like, are you hoping that we adapt this particular moment into the television series? As
I am. I am. And the reason why is because, in my opinion, it shows how young they really are.
Yeah.
And I like that because, they're kids, and this really and truly shows you how kid-like they still all act in certain situations. He has no clue where he is or what's going on, and they act the same ages as Rand through this whole thing.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Tal, you were going to say something there.
I like it just because of the opportunity for visual storytelling. I mean, the appeal to TV is show, don't tell. And this entire chapter 39, where he sort of gets caught up in the crowd trying to find a spot and running away from the white scabbard guys, is very swirly. Like, it was really evocative of being caught sort of as a leaf in a windstorm, just sort of like he's following a big crowd. And I really appreciated that, and I thought it was really beautiful. The beggar component, I think, maybe could be left out.
It's Pad and Fane. How are you gonna leave out Pad and Fane?
I know it's Pad and Fane, but like him following them into the ways, which we are not going to get to. It's 10:06. Is very Lord of the Rings-esque, and I worry about that part. But I don't know that we need to see the beggar in that scene. Anyways, I want to keep this because I think it's cool. Also, falling off the back of a wall is hilarious.
It gives him something to brag about later to his buddies.
Yeah, man.
Well, it demonstrates that the whole scene needs to stay. I don't think there's a single part of this that needs to be cut. It also demonstrates what they do such a good job of by setting the story through Rand's point of view for the most part in the first book. Is what we're getting is this fish out of water. He's experiencing the world at the same time we are. We need to see that. So this scene is part of that, where he gets in there and he's in front of the queen. Like a couple weeks before this, he didn't even know that Andor had a queen, right? Or that where he's from is a part of Andor. Now he's fallen in. He's been arrested, essentially. He's met the princess and the prince and the other kind of prince. And then he got dragged in front of the queen. And he's standing there in front of an Aes Sedai who he thinks is going to be like Moraine. And it turns out she's nothing like Moraine.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And makes threats at him, essentially. And then tries to say we should lock him up. Right? Like, you've got this whole... I just feel like that scene has to stay. Because it sets up... It's a lot of foreshadowing for what Rand is going to be. Rand is still coming to terms with it. And that fear that Elaida basically says he's going to ruin the world, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the weight that Rand feels on his shoulder when he later finds out that he is the Dragon Reborn. He knows what's coming, and he's been hearing these things bit by bit by bit. And this scene is just one of those times.
Yeah.
And I just feel it's really, really important.
Yeah. Mary, I don't know if you have anything to add to that or something like, about this scene.
I like the scene. I definitely agree. It needs to be there. It's kind of it's our first glimpse into a throne room, and one of the major arcs that keeps weaving through the entire series is the politics, the international politics between each of those nations. So this is our first look at a monarch. This is the first look at what is going to be the stage later on in the series, and it kind of sets the groundwork on what we expect, how that works, and it contrasts so starkly with what's happening in later parts of it. I'm not going to go into the spoilers, but yeah, no, we definitely need to keep it. It's too important. It's too much of a visual treat.
Yeah.
And it introduces us to some really great protagonists and antagonists. It can't be gotten rid of.
Yeah.
And I really think there's something to be said for a powerful, compassionate woman in power. Like, it's clear that she's smart. It's clear that she's clever. It's clear that she's listening and considering what her advisors have to say. And she's still saying, he's a kid, let him go.
Yeah.
Meaningful.
I want to... And I want to see how they do the heron mark on his sword when when she puts her hand on the sword and says something about it, and everybody in the room backs up and gets ready to die. You know, I
this
like
is
the way that.
This is a iconic group of scenes, and I think you guys are all reacting kind of how I thought, which is this is one of those areas that we just really hope, not necessarily has to be word for word or exactly, but something really close because it just sets up so many things in the story. We have one more caller tonight. It sounds like Nate. We'll bring him in, and we have maybe just a couple more minutes for the show. So let's bring Nate in and see what he has to say. Hey Nate, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. Thanks for being our last caller of the night. What do you have to say?
Hi. Well, from watching, it looks like I'm agreeing with you all how important the Rand in the throne room scene is.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, add I think Mary was saying how in this scene you go from just being shepherds on the run in inns and whatnot, and just jumping up to the level of being on national politics and monarchies, and Elaida talking about being having worldwide effects, and very specifically the moment where Elaida drops the bomb of a shepherd with a heron-marked sword. That is just one of my favorite moments in the whole series, and imagining how much bigger it would be if someone had dropped "This is the Dragon Reborn."
Yeah.
Up to the very end of the entire series, that's just a great way to describe Rand. He's a shepherd with a heron-marked sword. It's that dichotomy, that those things that don't match, but that's what he is.
That's Robert Jordan gives that commentary. So if you listen to the audiobooks, there's an interview at the end of the first couple where he talks about kind of the origins of the story. And it is that what would happen if you took just a normal farm boy and told him, not only are you going to save the world, but you're also going to destroy it at the same time. And by the way, that's all on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
And how would you react? How would you honestly react to that? And so that's why I feel like these scenes, and I'm sure this is what you're saying, but that's why I think these scenes are so important, because this is adding to that. This is adding to that pressure on Rand's shoulders, and he doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, I think the mantle though arrives right in this moment, right? It hits him, and he might be trying to be denying it at that point, but it's just so real and palpable for him and for us reading it. And this is the moment, right? The whole kind of beginning of the story built up, and here he is in this throne room with Elayne and Morgase, and the mantle is being set, right? There's no, right? The foretelling is right there. There's no escaping it at this point. So yeah, I love that. Hey, Nate, thank you very much for ending off the calls on a good note. But before you go, cut Loial or keep him?
See, this is really hard. I love Loial. I think I agree with you guys, though, that the Ogier are literally from another planet, and like Tom Bombadil could be moved. But I think it's a great opportunity for a spin-off series of the War of 10 Nations, and maybe having a previous caller said the Ogier died out. I'm thinking maybe the Ogier opened the Book of Translation during the Trolloc Wars, or the War of 10 Nations.
Interesting.
And that's when they left.
Man, I love that.
I really want to.
I love that speculative idea. I love that. I love that idea a lot, which is just the idea that we're gonna have other, break-off series from this. Oh man, jeez. Anyways, now I'm geeking out of what those should be. By the way, Nate, again, thank you for calling. Hope you keep on watching and giving us a call again. Good night.
Good night.
Will do. Thanks.
Well, everyone that's watching, this is about the time that we end the evening with you. We didn't make it as far. I think the last 3 shows I've promised so much more than we've made it, but the conversation was really fun. I was a little bit shocked about Loial there at the beginning of how much love the fans came and expressed, but I appreciate it. All of you who called, you're awesome. Nablus, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been a great friend of the show. You've shown up now these 3 last weeks. You jumped on with us here today. We really appreciate it. I know we're going to have you back again sometime in the future. Is there any comment I don't want to cut you off. Is there any comment you want to make before we close out the show?
Well, I had a random thought.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking this. I don't remember what you guys decided, but as we were just talking about the story, like Rand feeling the pressure of not knowing, what's going to be asked of him, and it kind of finally coming to him in this scene. I thought about this. How do you guys think do you think that we're going to have a concept, if you had never read The Wheel of Time, coming into the first season? Do you think they're going to explain the concept of the Dragon Reborn? Or are they going to let us figure that out and what that actually means by the end of the series? And
See, we were... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to... You go ahead.
Well, we were talking about this after the show last week, because I started reading this series in 90 or 91. I don't remember exactly when I picked up the half book. And I cannot remember realizing Rand was when I realized he was the Dragon Reborn. I don't know if I picked up on it pretty quick or if it took me on into book 2 before I finally figured it out. So it's hard to say, that's a hard one it's been too long for me to remember.
I'll need to give it some more thought. It came to me as we were talking about, I thought, what if they didn't introduce the idea of what that was until later on? And so we don't know if I was a new viewer of the show and had never read the books, what if we didn't know what this mounting pressure on Rand actually was? We keep getting hints of it from these different sources, but we don't know what it is. Yeah. Would that be more compelling television? Just a thought.
I struggle with that given Logain's.
Sure. And that's the foil to that. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, right? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I kind of love the idea. I just don't know how it would be executed.
It could be done if it was done as, the scary story to frighten children into doing what they need to do type of a thing. The history that, the dragon broke the world and drove male channelers mad, and now that's why male channelers are so horrible, and that builds up why Logain is not only horrible because he's a channeler, but also he's claiming to be the Dragon Reborn because the prophecies say this person who broke the world will be born again to save it and break it again. So you can have that be a background thing, but and not be a central point, and then it circles around and then it hits us in the face later. I think they could do that way.
Well, I'm sorry to get us all off topic, but I did want to say thank you for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun. This is a good time.
Yeah, it has.
Absolutely.
I love geeking out and talking about this series. So
yeah, absolutely. And for those that are watching, hopefully you'll do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification, the bell to get notifications. We'll be back next Wednesday to keep going. We'll get into the ways. We'll discuss that and move on to Faldara. I hope you'll come back again, but
it's ambitious.
Yeah, the panelists are laughing. We are going to be back next week. So
if we get to the eye of the world, we're going to have a lot of people really upset with me. So let's try that.
But yeah, that is good night from the Dusty Wheel. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Night.